You are listening to the Life Coach School podcast with Brooke Castillo, episode number 361.
Welcome to the Life Coach School podcast, where it's all about real clients, real problems, and real coaching. And now, your host, Master Coach Instructor, Brooke Castillo.
Welcome to the podcast, my friends. I am super excited today to have coaches from Self-Coaching Scholars come on the call and talk about what you can do with coaching in 20 minutes. And the reason why I wanted to talk about this is in Self-Coaching Scholars, as soon as you sign up for Scholars, you can get one session per week. You can sign up for one coaching session per week included in your membership. And I've had people before they sign up say, oh, I don't know if that's something I would ever utilize. Would I ever do 20-minute coaching? It seems like such a short amount of time. I don't know if I could benefit from that. And then on the other side, I talk to people who are in Scholars who are like, mind-blowing session, another mind-blowing session with my coach. Oh my gosh, everything's changed in that one session that I had this week. And so I think there's a disconnect, people not understanding what in the world can you do in a 20-minute session? How powerful is it? And if you're not in Scholars, what is it like to get on a session with a coach you've never met before, have 20 minutes with them and have that be impactful? Like, how does that work? And so I invited 3 of my coaches from Self-Coaching Scholars, Dominique, Lisa, and Sarah, to talk about their experience as coaches. And they are going to talk about their clients, some of their clients within Scholars that they've been able to help in the short sessions that they've been able to do in there. And I want to encourage you, if you're in Scholars, to utilize those sessions, but also if you're not in Scholars, to join and take advantage of the extraordinary opportunity that we have in there for such a small relative amount of money that you're actually paying. So let's start with you, Dominique. Why don't you tell us, first of all, introduce yourself, tell us a little bit about you, what it's like for you in Scholars, and then share some stories of what it's like in there, in the trenches.
Yeah. So my name is Dom, is short for Dominique Vandal. And I've been with you coaching as a contracted coach in Scholars since April of 2020. And it's just been amazing. And now I also get to be a mentor in Scholars. So I get to see so many of our scholars in all sorts of different situations. And I'm always astounded at how quickly we can connect in that 20 minutes. Mm-hmm. It doesn't take long. We see each other as human right away, and we can see what's similar right away. And that's always so much fun. And to have that space to be completely judgment-free in that 20 minutes, I think that is the greatest gift that we give them every single time.
Okay, but I just want to back up just a little bit. So you signed up for coach certification.
Yeah.
Were you a scholar before you did that?
Only for a little bit, actually.
Okay.
Yeah,
okay.
I found the podcast first in summer of 2018. And then immediately went through all the podcasts, as many as I possibly could on a road trip and everything else. And then I actually said, okay, I want to see what it's like really to be coached. It looks so much fun. I think I want to do this. I think I want to be a life coach, but I want to see what it's like. And so I started with Scholars. And right away, I mean, it took me a month of Scholars to go, yeah, this is exactly what I want. And so that's how I started.
Okay. So did you actually do a one-on-one session when you were in Scholars before you signed up for certification?
Oh, yes.
You did?
Yes.
Okay.
And they really helped me see what I could not see for myself. And I thought I was doing a lot of the models really well. And I was. But there's so much more to do also with your coach. And they always take it to the next level.
Yeah. And I think that's important. You know, you and I could take that for granted because we're on the other side of it, right? But there's many people, I mean, millions of people that listen to this podcast that have listened to all, like you said, like they binge listen to everything and they feel like their life has changed so much because of the model. And so many things in their life have gotten better that they feel satisfied, right? And so they don't see the need to then go join Scholars because they feel like, oh, it'll just be more of the same. I don't need to have a coaching session. I can coach myself. And so one of the things that I wanted to demonstrate on this session, because people ask me, well, what is there in Scholars that isn't on the podcast? What is this 20-minute session going to do that I can't get in the podcast? So I love that you're saying that then you joined Scholars the coaching had an impact. Then you signed up for certification, became a coach, then came back around, which I love. This is like our ecosystem, right? So the way that I think about it is like you pay me for certification, you got certified, and now I'm paying you as a coach, right? So I just love the way that it's so magical. And then many times, and I think Lisa could speak to this too, then you work as a coach, right? Which, can you just talk briefly about what that's like? Like you just see client after client after client, right?
Oh, yes. So I went from somebody, and some of you may know this story, but I went from being someone who could not pick up the phone and call for pizza delivery. I was so afraid that I'd make a mistake. I don't know why, but frozen.
Yeah.
And now I coach a different scholar every 20 minutes.
All day.
All day. And I can't prepare for the session. I don't know what they're going to bring me.
Right. So cool. I love it. Okay. And so you got certified and then you came back and applied to work for us, got the job. You've been working for us for a significant amount of time. Tell me about a couple of your sessions. I know that you've had, it's probably hard to pick. You've had hundreds, probably thousands at this point of sessions. What are a few that maybe stand out to you?
Yeah. As soon as I started thinking about this, the one that stood out to me the most is this beautiful, lovely scholar who came on the call. And she had this story about herself that there was no way that she could be seen as sexy anymore. She'd had a mastectomy, possibly double. I'm not sure. I cannot remember that detail. But to her, there's no way that she could be seen as sexy ever again. Her sex life was over. Not possible.
Right.
And we spent that time really looking at what she even thought sexy was. Right. And do you know that barely any of her ideas of what sexy was like or what a sexy body, like most of it had nothing to do with the physical body. Sexy is strong. Sexy is being fearless. All of these adjectives that had nothing to do with the body.
Oh, that's so good.
Yeah.
So interesting.
So I gave her that space, and with the questions that I asked her to decide for herself, what could sexy be from this moment on? And she lived in possibility with me. And I know that from that moment, she could take that and get back into that possibility, even after the call.
Right. That's what I love about coaching. So many times we ask someone a question and they're like, I've never thought that way before. I've never thought about this in this way. And there are so many moments when I've been coaching someone, and it doesn't even have to be 20 minutes. It could be a 5-minute period where they see something in a new way and they can never go back to the way they saw it before. So that's an amazing one. Love it. Do you have another one?
Yes. There is this woman that I coached just a few months ago whose son was just about to move out, and her son had some diagnoses, behavioral, cognitive. I can't remember exactly the details, but she wanted nothing more for her son than to be able to go live his life, be independent, and go for his ambitions and everything that he wanted. And she said to me, I just don't understand. Right now, I can't be myself when I'm with him. I keep telling myself that he needs this, and that before he moves out. And whenever we talk about it, I end up not telling him how I feel. I end up being this like small version of myself, walking on eggshells. And we discovered that the belief she'd had, which had served her for a very long time, I need to protect him. That was her overall belief. But then I asked her from what? And she hadn't realized all this time that the end of that sentence was from my emotions.
Oh, interesting.
So from that, we did the model together, of course, and we looked at it together, and we realized, well, when he's out into the world, this is what you want most for him to be independent and to live and be able to live in the world. He's going to meet complete individuals, humans, with a range of emotions, who may not be able to be as kind and as loving and non-judgmental as she could be with him today if she wanted to. So we worked on, if she got to show up however she might want to show up here with him, what might that look like? And we went there from a place of, there's no right answer. right? There's no right, there's no wrong answer. But she wants to give him all these opportunities, but she's not being herself.
Right.
So by actually being herself, it didn't have to be against this deeper desire that she has for him.
Wow. I love that. That's so good. One of the most important things about having a coach, and this is for anyone who's listening on the podcast or maybe is passively doing scholars, not utilizing the coaching opportunity that's in there, is that you have thoughts in your head that you can't see because you're in your head too. Right. So often, like in my own coaching work, like I can see many of my thoughts. I can do a thought download. I can understand my thoughts. But when I'm talking, and that's one of the things we really encourage in scholars in this one-on-one sessions, is that you don't come, even if you're a coach, you don't come and try and coach yourself. You just lay it out. You're like, I hate this and this sucks and this is terrible and I want this and whatever's happening. And when you do that, your coach can identify thoughts like you beautifully did here and clarify what you're actually thinking in a way that will make you realize that every thought you have in your mind is creating a result. You got to be careful about your thoughts that are in there. And so by asking her, protecting him from what, she could see the rest of that T line for herself and then see the result that was creating. Amazing. Okay, let's move on to you, Lisa.
Hey, yes, I've been around, Brooke. Like,
yes, you have.
I was actually one of the first coaches in Scholars doing the 20-minute sessions. I started working as a coach, I think in January 2019, but I had certified in 2014, 2015. So like way back when that was on the phone. And so I just jumped at the opportunity the moment, like the first round of applied coaching was offered, and my life hasn't been the same ever since. So this is the story. And I always laugh. I wanted to tell you that it's very important to me that I wanted to tell you that I signed up for coach certification at that time. And you had this corporate 3D man graphics in your webinars. And so the reason I signed up was that I fell in love, love at first sight with the model. And that was proof for me that it doesn't matter what the graphics are or how the website is looking. It just is the content that counts.
So true. That's so good. I love it.
Yeah. And so I've had so many sessions, and now I'm actually mentoring the new coaches that we are onboarding. And so I just watch a lot of sessions, and I've had tons of sessions. And so a couple that stand out to me, really are the ones that you were mentioning, Brooke, where we need another human brain on the human brain, right?
Yeah.
That's
before you jump into there, though, I want to interrupt you just shortly because you're kind of a legend in our world, right? I've heard more people say more amazing things, I think, because you've been here so long and done so many sessions. And one of the things I want to say about that is I don't think there's another opportunity, probably in the world, where you can hone your coaching skills. We require you when you come on board to already be first of all, you have to be certified, you have to be experienced, you have to be very knowledgeable and good as a coach. But then coaching all day, every day, and getting feedback on your coaching from a mentor like you makes you the most amazing coach, because what you realize is that everybody's going through the same kind of thing.
Yeah.
It presents in a slightly different way, but we all struggle with the same problem of being human with human brains. And so it gets to the point where it doesn't matter what the issue is, you can handle it. Right? It's like what Dom was saying. She's like, I don't know what they're going to bring me, but I know that I have the model and I know that I'll be able to run it through there. So can you just talk just briefly about that mentoring program for new coaches?
Yes, when a new coach is onboarded, I basically, and we're always evolving our processes, of course, but I spent some weeks with them, evaluating some of our sessions and giving them feedback, both of what they're doing great and also about what they're not doing maybe as great as the standards would require, so that they can be actually then, move on and really know that their skills are honed and they're all dialed in.
I love that. I love that. Okay. Tell us about some sessions that you've had.
Yes. So, well, first of all, one of the advantages of coaching in scholars is you just meet so many different people and so many backgrounds. And I'm based in Italy. So in the span of a morning, I could talk to 4 continents just in the span of an hour and a half, which is unheard of. Right. And so it really just helped me see that we're really all the same, like globally. That's just like, it's one thing to hear about that concept, and it's another to really actually coach people and see that from all over the globe, they have the same problem. So that was really a privilege. And one memorable session that I had was with a young woman that was struggling in her business. And actually she was being successful in her business. And these are one of the sneaky things that doing just self-coaching alone, probably you will have a harder time noticing if you don't have a coach pointing out. So she was thriving in her business, but then she was also struggling at the same time because she was starting to launch this second branch of her business with an online course. She was doing mostly speaking gigs and consulting, and that part was thriving. And so I could have coached her just reflecting on, okay, what can you do for this new branch that you want to launch? Like we could have got to like normal, like things that probably she could have done on her own. But really I got curious there and I say, okay, why are you thriving over here? And why are you struggling over there? And really, when we started digging, we realized the blueprint, the model that she was like coming with, and she had inherited from her family, she was also a Black woman, was that you had to struggle to make money, right? So her brain couldn't just like make peace with the fact that this part of her business was thriving and it was so easy. And so the moment we hit on that chord, that she was really like able to see it for what it was, and not just a time management problem, and not just, an organizational problems like she suspected it was. And that meant that it's almost like in those moments when you can offer that perspective to a client and the client receives it, it's almost like the house of cards falls down.
Yes.
Because,
so good.
It's just like totally different. So that's like one of my most memorable sessions, because really she left with the awareness of what the problem was, and it had nothing to do with what she thought the problem was.
Yes. So good. I'm always saying like, you can't outact a T, right?
Yeah.
You can't have enough action in your A line to compensate for a negative thought. So if you have a thought that I have to struggle to make money, you may not even be aware that you have that thought. That thought could just be so embedded. You may think it's just an observation. You may think it's just a fact. So that's one thing, like even in my own coaching, getting coached is someone will point out, that's just a thought. And for me, I've been doing this work forever, right? I created the model. I'm like, what are you talking about? What? Like, I was just talking about the world. I didn't realize I was creating thoughts that were giving me negative results. So that's a brilliant one. Do you have another one?
Yeah, there was another young coach entrepreneur, and she was struggling with visibility. And really, she came to me. That was so funny. She came to me and said, I've been spending all morning with my mouse hovering over a send button on my first Instagram post. And she couldn't bring herself to do it. And so we coached a little bit. Like for the first part of the session, we coached her on her model that was creating this situation, this like kind of like, Mexican standoff that she had with the mouse. Like she couldn't move. And then the second part, actually, like we talked about her future self and what she imagined her future self as a successful coach would remember doing that morning. And so she literally hit send on the call.
Right.
And awesome. Then we also got to spend, so like you can really do a lot in 20 minutes. We also got to spend the last part of the session actually processing her feelings of vulnerability because she had hit send.
Yes. I will tell you, this is so interesting. This is for all you new coaches. I remember back in the day, when we walked both ways to school in the snow, when blog posts were for me, it was like posting a blog post. Now, nobody was going to read my blog, right? I was posting it. Nobody even knew my URL. But I remember that feeling, and I remember how terrified I was. And I remember posting it and then unposting it and then posting it and then unposting it. And so I love that when you're in Scholars, you have the opportunity when you're like real time, you're going through something scary, you could get on the phone with your coach and actually take action on the phone with them. That is amazing. And then freak out on the phone with your coach to be able to process it.
And the best part about it was that she left the session knowing not only that she could post, but also that she could totally handle all the feelings that came with it. Right? Because she literally had done it in the 20 minutes. So
I love it. And, I just want to make a note of something, or maybe you could tell me, Lisa, how you handle this. If someone comes to you and they have a very big problem, right? It's quote unquote huge. And they're like, should I leave my husband? Should I start a business? I don't know what my purpose is. Like maybe something that seems like you can't make any progress with in 20 minutes. I want to encourage people to still bring all those big issues, but maybe you could talk about how you would handle a session like that.
Yeah. So depending on what the scholars brings, of course, we could look at one little example of how that is happening in their life right now, just so they can see that even though the big issue or the big problem may seem unsurmountable, for them, just really when they take it like one episode, one thing at a time, they have just so much more power in how to reframe that.
Yeah.
And I also like to remind them that we're just like exploring and we're just like trying to see and gain more awareness. And of course, they can have like the next coach in the next 20-minute sessions, take them to step number 2.
Exactly. So you get to have that one session, then you have time in between to process that portion of it. I think one of the things that the 20-minute session does is it really utilizes the time in a very efficient way, because you know that you have to get deep quick. And so most of the scholars will come more prepared with the issue that they have to be dealing with. And I'm always saying, like, take a specific piece of your problem and work on that. And like you had said earlier, sometimes it brings the whole house of cards down. Sometimes when you try to address the bigger issue all at once, there's no traction because it's so big. And so one of the things that I encourage if you're in scholars is, let's say you're trying to make a huge decision. Just take one portion of that and bring it to the session. And in fact, you could bring the big thing to the session and your coach can help you narrow it down to that one specific thing, because often just working on one little part of it brings it all down. Awesome. Thank you, Lisa, so much. Okay. What about you, Sarah?
Well, I have been working at the school like Lisa since the 20-minute sessions began. And it has been so fun to see just the numbers increase. But the problems kind of all stay the same, Right. I mean, there's different brains and different humans, but it all goes back to the model and how we can show them their mind and what result they're creating.
Yes.
And I love using the analogy of coaching. The coach offers the client a magnifying glass and we give it to them. They have to be willing to pick it up and willing to look through it. But together we can look through it and they might see a few different things than we see, but we can talk back and forth. And it's our job to just create this safe space for them, a space that isn't judgmental at all. We're literally just looking through the glass. That's
actually, let me just make a comment on that, because I think that's really important. I think what's so fascinating about the model and the way that we're trained at the Life Coach School is you can literally bring any topic. Like, we've had people bring us childhood trauma, sexual abuse, like stuff that they think that nothing can be done in a 20-minute session. And if it's significant trauma that's never been processed before, you may be right about that. But there are so many things that we can do with so many topics that people have so much shame about. And I think there's something powerful. Tell me what you think, Sarah. I come to you. I've never met you before. I'm totally ashamed about this thing. I know it's a very private, safe environment. I'm going to be able to tell you this thing and then maybe never see you again. There is magic in that in some ways, right? Because I can tell you this thing, you can coach me on it. And sometimes just telling one person who you know won't judge you in a space, something out loud, can create so much progress in your life, especially if it's something that you've buried away and festered. Would you agree with that?
I agree completely, because when you're telling somebody and you know that you might not see them again,
right?
It gives you permission to just bear it all out there.
Yes.
And sometimes we do see repeat clients, and it's totally fine.
Of course.
But they come and they just, like you said, in 20 minutes, they know it's focused. It's like, you just got to get in and get dirty from the very beginning. And the scholars come that way. I love it. It's like, if you had to work out at the gym, would you rather work out for 20 minutes or an hour?
Exactly. Why work out for an hour when you get it done? So good. It's so good, right?
So yeah, we do our work as coaches to hold that space. So you can come and do that. I mean, I'm sure Dom and Lisa also use the 20-minute sessions, just like I do, with the same
to get coached. Yeah.
Because we have brains too,
Right. Exactly. I love it.
And I love using the sessions because they are quick. I know I can get in and get out and feel better in a short amount of time. And that's important to me. And so I try to offer the same thing to the clients. I know that scholars, like all of us, lead busy lives. It's like, let's get in here and find what thoughts are creating what results in your life from the very beginning, and then just talk about it and process it. Like Lisa said, we often have time even left over at the end of the session to process the feelings, to talk about new thoughts that they can think, and they leave. You can even see it on their faces. I'm sure.
Oh, yeah.
Like you've experienced that where you're talking with somebody and they come and their demeanor is kind of like heavy and weighed down. And by the end, they're actually smiling and their whole countenance is brightened and lifted. Yes. That is such a rewarding place to be as a coach, but it's the client who's doing the work. They're the ones that are making these strides and coming willing to like look through that magnifying glass, willing to pick it up, willing to be curious, because the client also has to be non-judgmental for any process or any progress to really happen.
Yes, I love that. Can you give us a couple of examples that you've had that were profound?
Sure.
Yeah.
Sure. Well, I mean, my examples are kind of like examples I think that a lot of people could relate with.
Okay.
On both ends of the spectrum, as far as age goes. I had a young 19-year-old girl coach with me, and I love that younger people are taking the initiative to join Scholars.
Yes.
Because then they have it for the rest of their lives. It's incredible.
Gosh. Oh my gosh. Can you imagine? So
if I had this when I was 18, 19, my life, well, maybe it wouldn't be different, but I can only imagine the heartbreak that I would have saved myself from my own thoughts, from my own self.
Yes.
So this 19-year-old girl came and she basically was asking me permission to leave her boyfriend, asking me my opinion on whether or not she should stay with her boyfriend.
Yes.
And some clients do get confused. They think we're going to tell them what to do. It's like, I'm going to show up, ask my coach, what should I do here? They're going to tell me, and then I'm going to do that thing. But it never works that way. It's like they have to come and give themselves permission to do that thing. When she was asking me permission to leave, it's like she already knew what she wanted to do.
Right.
But had I given her permission and said, go ahead. I mean, and I could have you now have permission to leave your boyfriend who's calling you fat and ugly and worthless. But she needed to give herself that permission. And when she asked my opinion, I said, well, what would you tell a very dear friend? You know all of the facts in this situation. What would you tell a friend to do in this situation? Can you be that friend to yourself?
I love that.
Give yourself permission to do.
Yes.
And she was like, you know what? I know exactly what I want to do. I don't know why I've been waiting so long. Because the fascinating thing was like, when she found her thought that was keeping her stuck was nobody is going to love me. Like, can you see that you're not giving yourself permission to even be loved in this very situation?
Yes.
He's not loving you here.
Right. That's so good. I love that you brought that up because I think there are coaches and other coach training institutions that do teach how to give advice and how to hold people accountable. And at the Life Coach School, that's not what we do at all. We want people to, how in the world could we know whether they should date someone or not, or do something or not? We can have our own opinions, but our own opinions are not relevant for other people. But we can help people find their own wisdom and their own answers and possibly get further resources if they need them in certain situations. But I love that empowerment that we provide to all of our scholars, to all of our clients is, you're the only one that knows about your life. And decision-making is how we are empowered in our own life. And so as coaches, we're not making decisions for you. You're making your own decisions. That's a great one. And I love that she was so young. That's amazing.
Yeah. It also makes it so easy as us as coaches. We don't have to know the answers.
Right. Of course.
We could just go up and ask her questions. Yeah.
Exactly. I love that.
Yeah. And the other example that I wanted to share was the sweetest retired woman who came, and she's just working through things. And on the other end of the spectrum, you're never too old to benefit from coaching ever. So this lady came and her husband was recently retired, and she was just distraught with him being around all of the time. Like, and she kept saying, now I love him dearly. He's such a great man, like he's so wonderful, but he's driving me crazy with his incessant news feed and like his ramblings on politics. And he just can't shut up. And just like, she was just talking about how he's constantly yammering about politics and the news. And, as a coach, we're taught not to really believe their story. And so we try to get a succinct C-line, the facts.
Yes.
So tell me the facts. Because by the way she was talking about it, sounded like he was just following her around the house all the time with his phone, telling her what's going on. And she's
Right,
like,
right.
Well, we have coffee together in the morning, and he reads the newspaper, and he talks for about 5 minutes.
Mm.
And so it was so fascinating. She actually laughed out loud because she's like, 5 minutes, what? And it was interesting because she was able to see that the reason why he was following her around and in her head all of the time was because after those 5 minutes, she was thinking about it all day long, about how annoyed she was that he was just talking about politics. She's like, I'm not even interested in that. Why does he keep talking to me about it? Does he think I'm dumb? And those are all the thoughts she had after he had talked.
Yes. Oh, that's so good. That's so good. It's just such the magic of the model and the refinement that experienced coaches can offer in terms of all the lines of the model. The C line, which is the circumstance line, just refining the thought line, like Dom was explaining, right? Not focusing too much on that action line because we can't outact our own thoughts. I love all of the examples that you all brought today. And of course, there's so many more. These coaches are coaching all day, every day in Scholars. So as a coach, you guys are getting such a breadth of experience as coaches. And then as clients, being able to go in there and work with these amazing, experienced coaches, getting the insight that they're offering in 20 minutes. I wanted to share that experience with those of you who are maybe on the fence about hiring a coach or joining Scholars and getting coached within Scholars. I really want to encourage, even if you just try it for 1 month, get a coaching session every week for 1 month, right? That's the most affordable coaching you'll ever get in your life. That doesn't even include all the group coaching and all the content that you get in Scholars. That just includes the one-on-one session. It would be so worth every penny just to have the experience of working with one of our coaches for 20 minutes. It takes one thought to change your life. One thought. I can think of 2 thoughts for myself that I changed within a minute that completely changed the trajectory of my life. One was I decided I would never think I hate my body again. I made a decision that model would no longer be in my life. I changed it in one coaching session. I never looked back. I had another thought that was, if I'm too big in my life, too successful, I'll never have any friends. When I changed that thought, my life took off in a way that has landed me here, where my life is huge and I have more friends than I ever knew was possible. And so I want to invite you to allow your life to be changed by maybe having your thoughts examined by someone outside of your own brain. And they may be able to help you see something that you can't see for yourself. The coaches and Scholars love being there. They love coaching. I mean, they want to coach all day, every day. So I want to invite you all in there. And I want to thank each of you for coming on the podcast today and sharing your coaching experience. And thank you for working in Scholars as tirelessly as you do. You are so appreciated. I hear so many amazing things about all of you. If you want to get coached, Dom and Sarah are still in there. If you are a coach and you want to become a coach in Scholars, you'll get to meet up with Lisa and she'll get to mentor you. So thank you all for coming on the podcast today. I really appreciate it. Is there any final thing you want to say to maybe someone who's a podcast listener who hasn't been coached before, Dom?
Yeah, just do it. It's going to change your life.
Perfect. Thank you for coming on. What about you, Lisa?
Oh, just that we don't bite. We are just there to help.
I love it. All right, Sarah, final words.
I just love how coaching connects humanity. We live in a divisive world. If everybody had coaching, we could see that everybody's just doing the best they can. They're all just using their human brains. Some of them with more knowledge than others on how the brain works. But if everybody had coaching, I think we would treat each other a lot differently and ourselves.
You know what? Just as a final note, you just made me think of something. As a self-coaching Scholars coach, you get to see both sides of the equation, right? From different clients. 1 minute you'll be coaching a husband, the next minute you're coaching the wife on the exact other side of the coin. And you start seeing that everyone's really coming from their own humanity. That's such a beautiful point to end with. Thank you guys so much for coming on, and we will talk to everyone next week. Take care. Bye. Hey, if you enjoy listening to this podcast, you have to come check out Self-Coaching Scholars. It's my monthly coaching program where we take all this material and we apply it. We take it to the next level and we study it. Join me over at thelifecoachschool.com/join. Make sure you type in the lifecoachschool.com/join. I'd love to have you join me in Self-Coaching Scholars. See you there.